In the name I am that I am, Sana tomorrow, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I demand the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend on mighty cosmos, secret range. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sana Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory, come forth in this hour of the victory of the God's flame. I demand the full power of beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus and Kusumi, Lord Maitreya, Gautama and Sana Kumara, come forth now in the victory of the God's flame. Send the light 10,000 suns, beloved mighty stand, mighty stand, mighty stand. Around this fortune now. I call upon the great central sun magnet. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved is stand, beloved is stand, beloved is stand. I call upon the electronic solar rings of the great central sun, the seraphim of God. I call for the electronic fire rings. I call for the rings of the great central sun. I call for the great central sun magnet.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. This is Robert Phoenix, and you're listening to the show that I lovingly like to call Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm coming to you live from Point Richmond, California, just 48 hours after a massive petroleum fire that took place here, roughly about 2 to 3 blocks away from my house. And I wasn't here at the time, and I'm thrilled about that. But it was a pretty pervasive fire and quite a big burn. It stretched all the way from the refinery and went into the sort of the north west to northeast. I'm sorry, northeast to eastern, and then curling around southeastern region of the area. But that would include places like Antioch and Martinez, Pinole, and then curling back towards El Sobrante, El Cerrito, Albany, and up into the Berkeley and Oakland Hills. This was a huge, huge fire. And what was really unusual about the fire was that that day, the FAA had issued a no-fly zone over Richmond. And I know this because a good friend of the show, Sarson, had sent me a link. This was right around the same time I was finding out about the fire. He said, do you know why the FAA would issue a no-fly zone over Richmond? And I was like, well, this is really interesting. Now, I don't know if he knew that there was a fire here at the time. Maybe he did when he sent that. I'm not sure. But it was very odd, I got to tell you. And then I went to link to that on Facebook later that night, and the page for that link was gone. Very unusual. Anyway, the upshot of it is that gas prices are about to go up. The gas prices are about to go up. Now, what was also very strange was this morning, I was getting my kid ready for camp, and we were listening to the radio, and there was an emergency broadcast. And they, on the emergency broadcast, had said that there was going to be that people in Martinez, which is up the road. See, I live here in California where I live. There are it's like a domino effect of refineries, and it starts here in Point Richmond, and then it goes east and it goes to Pinole, Antioch. There's a big one in Antioch, and then there's another one in Martinez. And then there's another one in Pittsburgh. It's Refinery Row. They were all built during the 1970s. And this is where a bulk of the petroleum refinement takes place for the United States. Of course, there are other refineries, but it's a big, big corridor for refineries. Anyway, this morning there was an announcement on the radio saying that people in Martinez had to evacuate Martinez and go to a shelter go to a center, a shelter center. And then about 10 minutes later, they got on the radio and they retracted that emergency broadcast. Why did that happen? What's going on here? You know, this is ostensibly a show about astrology, and we were going to talk about Mercury retrograde. And this whole thing with the fire was happening while Mercury was going from retrograde to direct, so it was in a kind of a stationary flux phase. But it was very unusual. Anyway, I wound up spending the night at a friend's house up in the hills, and I'm back here because, well, theoretically, the wind has blown through and most of the particulates are gone. Although I got to tell you, my chest has been funky. It's been funky for the last couple of days. And on Monday night, when this all started, I could actually taste chemicals in my mouth. So it was a very, and Chevron, by the way, has been just mum about the whole thing. Totally mum. And it's weird because Chevron is just on the other side of the freeway from where I live. And I live in a pretty cool little town. It's like a village. And if it weren't for Chevron, this town would not exist. Now, before Chevron was here, the railroad came through this town. It still does, but, you know, how big is the railroad now? It's not big at all. So this town has been supported by transportation and the fuel for transportation for years. So I have mixed feelings about Chevron's presence here, or Chevron in general, because they support this town. There's a lot of good people in this town. They have businesses in this town. There are restaurants in this town. I know a lot of people because of, you know, living here and supporting their businesses. So if Chevron went away, this town will go away. Now, is there a better use for Chevron? Perhaps. You know, over the course of the last year or two, they've gotten into ethanol. I'm not a huge ethanol fan. I think ethanol is kind of a joke. That's why they're growing all this genetically modified corn. It's because of the ethanol. That's what ethanol is. It's essentially a corn fuel. And they've installed pipes. They now produce ethanol at the Chevron plant. They've installed pipes that run underneath the freeway and come right up to the train tracks, which are across from Chevron, so they're able to pump that fuel right into the trains. So I don't know. I guess they're moving into the 21st century. Who knows? But on the other hand, they completely screwed up Ecuador. I mean, they went in there and just screwed up Ecuador, and they've lost twice now in international court in Ecuador, and they owe Ecuador hundreds of millions of dollars. And they haven't paid. So anyway, here we are. It's 2 days after the fact, and you know, I guess I'm feeling okay, but you know, it's a little sketchy. It's a little nervous. It just really brought to my attention how, in some ways, fragile life is. And we go through our lives, and you know, we live amongst these, whether they're nuclear reactors or refineries, you know, or dams, whatever these things are that we've become so dependent upon, and we have trust and faith in God that nothing's going to go wrong with these things. It is really kind of a wake-up call every now and then. Speaking of wake-up calls, they've had a couple of earthquakes in Southern California. They had one last night, and then they had one today. That's 2 in a row and sizable. People are feeling them. I think last night's was in Yorba Linda. Today, I know that there are people in Santa Monica that felt that quake. So it's 2 quakes. Pay attention. Pay attention to Southern California. Now, on Monday, I talked about the rumor that the United States Army had, and not just the Army, armed forces, had been given 2 weeks to move off of coastlines here in this country. Now, there are people that believe that that rumor is false, that was there's a guy, I don't listen to him, but apparently he's quite popular. His name is John Moore. He's sort of like the, I don't know, maybe the more middle class, middle-aged version of Alex Jones. And there are people in the quote-unquote truther camp that think he's full of shit and is a gatekeeper. sleeper, just like Jones is. I don't know. I haven't listened to him enough, but he has gone public and said that this is not true, that this was just a rumor. Well, the rumor, I think, started on his show. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But so it came out, and now this guy who a lot of people listen to, he said it's not true. But we've just had 2 quakes here in California. And the big news, which you're not hearing about, but the big news, and this taps into Chiron and Neptune and Chiron, or Chiron and Neptune, rather. The big news is that because of the heat wave that's been taking place in the middle of this country, a relentless heat wave, which I believe has been artificially created, that heat wave is drying up the Mississippi. The levels of the Mississippi are lower than they've been in a very long time. So what happens when the Mississippi dries up? The Gulf of Mexico then brings salt water into the Mississippi. It begins to encroach into the Mississippi. It's just water seeking its own level, right? If the Mississippi, which dumps into the Gulf of Mexico, recedes, well, then what happens to the salt water? It's going to essentially move into, and then it's going to proliferate inside of the banks of the Mississippi. Now, what happens when salt water and fresh water commingle? Personally, it can't be that great because the ecosystem is a finely tuned network of balance. And for the last 2 years, really since BP happened, people have been talking about the New Madrid or the New Madrid, however you want to pronounce it, the fault in that area, which has been fracked. It's been all around the New Madrid. They've been fracking like crazy in order to extract gas. Then you had the fracturing, not the fracking, but the fracturing of the New Madrid when the BP oil spill, the explosion took place. So that impacted the New Madrid. There was a huge amount of flooding last year. If you go back to last summer, we've had these just incredible swings with, I remember watching the Memphis Grizzlies in the playoffs last year, and people were like wondering whether or not they would have to bring an inflatable raft to the arena to watch the Grizzlies play basketball. That's how high the Mississippi was at that point in time. So we've gone from these really just drastic, oversaturated. I remember last year, in Missouri, the Fort Cooper incident with the nuclear reactor, that was underwater too. So now we've gone in the other direction, with absolutely no water, with the exception of the encroachment of the water from the Mississippi. I am not a geologist, okay? I don't claim to know everything, but I got a sense that when these things happen, when the dramatic changes in the ecosystems occur, they have much deeper impacts than we understand. So could we be seeing something, dramatic happen in that area in terms of, not so subtle earth changes? There's a great potential for it. If you go back and you look at the maps of like Gordon Scallion, some of you may know who Gordon Scallion is. If you don't know who Gordon Scallion is, he was a guy who was, I think Gordon Scallion was like an engineer of some sort, and he had an experience where he went, he had a nervous, wasn't a nervous breakdown, it was more like a nerve breakdown, where he was paralyzed, he couldn't talk, he couldn't listen, or he could listen, he couldn't talk, he couldn't use his hands, and that lasted, I think, 4 or 5 days. And when he came out of that, he had this clairvoyant, clairsentient ability, and he had visions. And one of the visions that he had was the vision of a new America. Well, what's interesting about his vision is that it's matched other people's visions. Now, I don't know whether or not he has simply lined himself up with like the I am vision of the U.S., and I'll talk about that in terms of geography. I'm not talking about politics or anything. I'm just talking about geography. But it's very similar to the I am vision, and that vision is essentially that the Gulf of Mexico does come up into the majority of the Midwest. And Omaha becomes a port city, and it's one of the most important cities in the United States. Omaha, and if you get into the political sort of, projection, political vision, Omaha becomes the capital, the new capital of the United States. So here now, what we're seeing is the beginnings of potentially this map unfolding where the Mississippi is starting to recede and the Gulf of Mexico is starting to rise and encroach on the waters of the Mississippi. And I believe when you get waters that have different temperatures, different salinity, it's going to have an impact on the surrounding land masses. One man's take. So there we go. We're getting caught up to speed a little bit here on that issue. Well, one of the things that we're going to be dealing with in October is the shift from Saturn in Libra to Saturn in Scorpio. And, here we have, Saturn is associated with land. Saturn is Capricorn, right? I mean, it is Earth, and then Scorpio is water. And so here we have, again, this commingling of matter and effluvia, water coming together. And it's going to be very interesting, Saturn and Scorpio. I, for one, like it. I think I'm a Scorpio rising. What can I say? I like it, and I think it's going to have a strong impact on many areas in our lives. We're going to get a real bird's eye view of corruption in ways that we've never seen before. And I think, Scorpio has a lot to do with power. It's a very powerful sign. And I think that people are going to get more in touch with their personal power with Saturn and Scorpio. And I think a lot of it is going to have to do with the fact that people are going to be dropping things that no longer serve them. The addictive tendencies. And we got into a big thread on Facebook. By the way, you can follow me on Facebook if you want to. I'm Robert Phoenix on Facebook. We have great discussions, and a lot of the people that contribute to the discussions listen to the show, or they actually read the blog, and they're really bright. They bring a lot to the table. So we had this great discussion. I made this post on. I didn't make it. I posted about something that Raquel Welch had talked about. Raquel Welch of Virgo. And of course, she would have a real strong take on this. She was talking about porn and how porn has ruined men. And I totally agree. I completely agree with the porn ruining men. And I can tell you because I'm a man. I am a man. And, I grew up in an era where soft porn was considered cool, was considered hip, was considered progressive. And there was always this little, illicit little thing like, running into somebody, my father did not read. He did not read Penthouse or Playboy. He didn't do that. But somebody else's parents, well, hey, let's go root around their drawers and find out what they've got, in their drawers. It was really funny. I remember one time, I must have been about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, was not very old. And I was at my neighbor's house across the street. And I was hanging out with my friends who actually shared the same birthday as me, by the way, who's older. He's about 4 years older, 3 or 4 years older. And his sister, who was my age. And they brought me into their mom and dad's bedroom. And they opened up, the night table next to the bed. And they took out this enormous dildo. It was hilarious. I'm like, what the hell is that? And they were laughing and grinning and slapping it around. They thought it was funny, right? Well, after you get some perspective on this stuff, a few years, that you begin to play the movie in your head. It's like, oh wow, that woman their mom was pleasuring herself with that dildo. I was like, okay, it's a little too much information. But I guess a few years after the fact, it's not too bad. But anyway, but as a kid growing up in the 70s, porn was something that, it was almost encouraged culturally to listen to get into and to partake in. So as a male, I got caught up in it. Playboy, Penthouse. We'd go to the drive-in theater. We'd sneak into the drive-in theater to watch porn flicks. I'll never forget it. This one guy was a friend of ours who was 18. I let him drive my car. We hid in the trunk, and he banged my car up getting into the damn theater. So that's the price you pay. Anyway, she got into this and basically said that porn is ruining men. And it was a very intense conversation. There's about 50 comments on it. And one of the things, and I'm leading to a point around this, one of the things is that Saturn in Scorpio is going to be about topics like this. It's foreshadowing what we're going to be dialoguing about. We're going to be dialoguing about sex. We're going to be dialoguing about porn. I shared a story. There's somebody who listens to the show and reads the blog. She's in the New York City school district, and she told me a story that blew my mind. This is last September. She told me that there was a girl that confided in her, high school girl, who told her that that guys will ask her if she will have anal sex with them. These are high school guys. Will you do anal? That is the big question. And she is not into doing anal. Guess what? They won't touch her. It's not even like, will you have sex with me? Will you bend over for me? Where did they get this notion? It's the Pluto and Scorpio generation, obviously, so they're gonna take things to the extreme. But where do you get that notion? To me, it's just insane. She went back to this woman and she said, I don't know if I'll ever be loved because I won't do anal. I mean, it's crazy. Saturn in Scorpio, we're going to have these discussions. It's going to come out. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be, and I'm not talking about like the moral majority. It's not going to be like that. But I think people are going to have a reasoned, lucid, and empowering dialogue around the appropriate use of energy. It's coming. It is coming because people are going to start to drop these addictive tendencies, whether it's alcohol or porn or television or McDonald's French fries. We all need those little things in life to kind of get us through edgy moments. We need those things. We're not all living in a 15th century Muslim culture yet, or you know what I mean? It's not there. We're not Mennonites. I'm not even proposing that. But I think to have the conscious awareness around what it is that drives us and drives us crazy and drives us to the brink of being unable to cope in the world in a way that is clear, because that's what it's all about. It's about clarity. And I think you don't want to miss much now, because if you miss much, you're going to miss out on some amazing things, and you're going to miss out on some things that, well, if you're into being aware and you're into seeing what's going on in the world and you're mired in some kind of addiction, you're going to get steamrolled, okay? That's just the way it is. And Saturn and Scorpio is about that. The other thing about Saturn and Scorpio, it's about money, other people's money, the investment community, the investment world, banking. Saturn and Scorpio, huge banking scandals. Count on it. Bank on it. It's coming. All right, I'm going to get into some free readings, but I just want to very, very quickly talk about 8/11. And there's been some talk, again, chatter on the internet, that 8/11 is a big day for the London Olympics. Huge day for the London Olympics. The closing ceremonies happen on the 12th. There is some thought, excuse me, there is some esoteric thought and explanation that the closing ceremonies are not going to happen the way they're supposed to happen. Now, to understand the closing ceremonies, you have to understand who is doing closing ceremonies. The woman who is in charge of them, her name is Ez Devlin, and Ez Devlin is the creative director for Lady Gaga, Muse, Jay-Z, Kanye. Do you get the script? She is that person. She does all their stage stuff, all of it. And I've done some stuff on her on my website. She's the one that is involved she is the creative director of the closing ceremonies. So, if we want to take these leaps of fancy, that her association with these artists who quite clearly are illuminists, all of them, and that includes Muse. I don't want to, sorry. Muse they're kind of like, they're interesting in that they play both sides of the game. If you look at Muse's iconography and their fashion, it's all black and white, black and white, black and white, black and white. Lots of checkerboards are always showing up, with black and white fashions. So they're playing with duality. They're playing with the polarity. So they can do songs about harp. They can do songs about black holes, and they appear to be really cool. But on the other hand, they're also, having their shows creatively directed by the creative director of Illuminati, Lady Gaga, Jay-Z, Kanye, do the math. So there you go. That's happening theoretically on the 12th. But on the 11th, 8/11, it's like, no, it's not quite 9/11, right? But then there were 7/11, or was it 7/7? It was 7/7 in England when they had the bomb blast in England. But 8/11. So I did a chart for 8/11, and it's an interesting chart. There's a T-square going on with an opposition. It's a 5-degree orb opposition, Venus and Pluto opposition, and then, of course, Uranus and Aries comes into play. So you've got that T-square happening. Now, I did this for 11:11 a.m. on 8/11. And the big, I think, so what's happening also is that Mars is colliding, theoretically, with Saturn. Saturn and Libra, they're 2 degrees apart. And Jupiter and the moon are conjunct. And at that time, it's 11 and 8 degrees. Jupiter moves into 12 degrees Gemini that day. And the moon, of course, cycles through itself throughout the day as well. The moon and Gemini don't get to 11/11. They get to 11 and 12. That's the closest in terms of the 11/11 thing. 11 degrees moon. Now, the moon will get to 12/12 with Jupiter, but not 11/11. Now, on my latest newsletter, I get very into polarity, duality, and Gemini. It plays a huge role in what's happening right now, from a consensus reality to a multiversic reality, to duality, to time shifts, temporal illusions. Gemini is the big player right now. And the moon will be in Gemini that day, conjunct Jupiter. I'm just putting that out there. And at 11/11, Jupiter and the moon, this is again London time, they will be in the 8th house, which is the house of Scorpio. It's hidden. And they're squaring Neptune at that time, Neptune and Pisces. So what are we talking about? We're talking illusion, deception. Pisces is in the 5th house, and it's conjunct Chiron. So just to give you an idea as to what people are thinking and talking about, that there will be a false flag, theoretically, on 8/11, and that there will be some kind of fake response, heroes. So something will be foiled, and and out of that foiled attempt, there will be a sense that, wasn't this great? These guys saved the day. Well, let's militarize every city in the world just so this doesn't happen ever again. It worked for London. Maybe it can work for New York. Hey, let's put some missile turrets up on the Empire State Building. Oh, by the way, they had an issue yesterday at maybe it was this morning at the One World Trade Center, which used to be the Freedom Tower. Went from the Freedom Tower to the One World Trade Center. Anyway, they had an issue there, and I think they had some kind of a fire or something. They had to shut it down. But anyway, if something does happen with the Jupiter-Moon conjunction on the 11th, I could actually see that. I could actually see that taking place. Mercury squares Mars. Mercury squares Saturn right at that time. And when Mercury squares Mars, it's fractious. It is fractious. It is aggressive. That's what's happening. So there's more. I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna write about it on the site. I just punched up the chart today, and I'm gonna put this in the chat room right now. Here we go. In the chat room, see if we can get that. I don't know about that. For whatever reason now, it's like Blog Talk won't let me do links. That stinks. Is Gates in there? Yeah, Gates. If you can punch up 8:11 in London at 11:11 a.m. and somehow get it in the chat room, you guys can look at that. Yeah, you guys can look at that in the chat room and discuss that and kick that around. One of the things we do is we look at charts here and we talk about this stuff. There are lots of really sophisticated people that come to the show and hang out. By the way, I got this really interesting comment on YouTube, and I'm going to get to the readings in like 2 minutes. Hang in there, 780-510, hang in there. I got a really interesting comment on YouTube. The guy said, I'm assuming it's a guy, I like what you're doing. You have really good information, and you have great topics, but you talk so slow, you're so mellow, and you have too many gaps in between your words, and I fell asleep listening to you. It was an interesting comment. So if you're listening, I got your comment, and here's what I did. I went to Facebook, and I asked, again on Facebook, do you think that I am too mellow? Am I too monotone? Do I have too many gaps? I mean, I was looking for feedback, and most people said no. So it's a style thing, it's a style thing. There's some people that are into, how about Garrison Keillor? What if I did the show as Garrison Keillor and Lake Wobegon, Prairie Home Companion? How'd you like that? Let me see if I can give it a go. Let me see. Well, on 8/11, there's going to be some interesting aspects in the sky. Now, if you're a Londoner, you may ask why. Well, I'll tell you why. Here in Minnesota, where the Aurora Borealis comes down to greet us on a semi-annual basis, and the stars influence us with the radiance of their closeness, particularly the sun. I mean, I can do it like that, I guess, or I can do the NPR version. Good morning and welcome to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm your host, Robert Phoenix, and today is 8/8. I can do it like that. Anyway, I just am who I am, okay? I'm just going to do this the way I do it, and I understand it, and maybe I can, turn up the volume a little, but can't go too far outside the lines. I will take constructive criticism, though. Because if you can't take constructive criticism, then you can't take much. And I got to tell you, that is the problem with the world in some ways, that we can't take constructive criticism. Why? Because people's feelings are going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. That's what happens. I'm feeling judged by you. No, I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you what you did was stupid. You're a nice person. I think you're smart. I'm trying to help you get there. You're hateful. You're negative. You're a negative person. No, it doesn't happen that way. This is what we've been conditioned. Nobody wants to feel bad anymore. That's what's wrong with the world. Nobody wants to feel bad. People can't deal with their pain. People try to find the earliest possible exit for their pain. Embrace your pain. All right, let's get into the readings here. Hello, you're on the air. How are you?
Hey, Robert, how's it going? Listen to your conversation. You sound pretty good, so I don't know what the heck is going on. So
I don't know either, man. But I listen, and if somebody has something constructive to say, I'm open to it. I'm not perfect. I want to get better. I'm not. So, and I put it back out there because I wanted feedback, and it's not the feedback I got. So maybe somewhere in between. Who knows? What's up today?
Not too much. Just wondered what's going on with my chart just a little bit. I'm an Aries, so if you have my chart in there, it's Jay calling from Canada. It's great to talk to you again.
Okay, Jay, let me do this. I might have to do a new window here, and I'll tell you what. I'm just going to go over here, and let's go. Let's get rid of Mitt Romney. You're replacing Mitt Romney. How's that sound?
Well, it sounds like great inspiration.
Yeah. Is that guy weird or what?
Well, I don't know. I live in Canada, so I really don't pay attention to what's going on.
Take my word, he's weird. Check this out, okay? This is an interesting bit of trivia. The first ship that the English crown sent to defend itself against the usurpers of the United States in the tax uprising, the name of that ship was the HMS Romney. Pretty interesting, huh?
Very interesting.
Okay, when were you born, Jay?
March 24th, 1964.
Okay. There's another interesting bit of trivia that goes along with that factoid, but I'm going to save it until after our reading. So,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, and what time?
11:54 p.m.
Okay. All right, let's go to p.m. There we go. And where was that?
Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada.
I love that name, Medicine Hat. It's awesome. Oops, hold on. There it is. Cool, all right. All right, there's your chart. Really interesting chart. Your biggest challenge, as you probably know, is the opposition between Moon and Uranus and Saturn. So let's just go over this here, make sure we got it all right. Aries, right? Aries, 4 degrees. I got you as a Sagittarius ascendant at 1 degree with the Moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. Is that correct?
I think so. I'm not sure. I'm not really.
Yeah, that's what I have. And the biggest challenge in your chart is the 0 degree opposition with the Moon and Saturn. And what's interesting is that, your Moon is in Virgo. It's at the earliest degree of Virgo. And Virgo is a very critical sign. And people that have Moon in Virgo are some of the most self-critical people on the planet. I was raised by 2 parents with Moon in Virgo. And people who have Moon in Virgo can be very hard on themselves, extremely hard on themselves, because there's this desire to attain some form of emotional or perfection. And when it doesn't happen, a lot of times, especially with my parents, they projected that out onto the world until the world always fell short for them on some level. Now, what's interesting about your chart is you've got Uranus at 6 degrees, which is conjunct your Moon. And normally a Virgo Moon is quite conservative, but when it's conjunct Uranus, it's very different. And at times, you could really surprise people with some of the things that you do, some of your opinions or points of view. You could be actually, fairly shocking at times. The other thing that I think could be really powerful about that conjunction is the ability to recuperate and heal. I don't know if you heal quickly or get through colds and things like that quickly, but with the Moon conjunct Uranus, and of course Uranus conjunct Pluto, there is the potential for really powerful accelerated healing in your life and potentially in other people's lives. And all those planets are in the ninth house. And those are all extremely powerful planets to have in the ninth house, particularly Pluto and Uranus. I have Pluto and Uranus in my ninth house as well. Mine are in Leo and Virgo. But people that have Pluto and Uranus in the ninth house tend to be social reformers. And they see the big picture. They kind of, get into the mechanics of, why things work or don't work at a really high level. They're interested in untying knots and trying to, and in your case, inserting more helpful, more beneficial, and in a lot of ways, efficient systems. Efficiency should play a really large role in your life and in your chart. Like, you could see something with all those planets up in the ninth house in Virgo very clearly, extremely clearly, and not understand why other people don't see it the same way. Like, why don't you guys get this? And that could be anything from the macro, like the world situation, to implementing a system at a company that you might be working for. Like, you would be the person that would totally get it. But because all that stuff is in Virgo, well, your sun in Aries is actually kind of a real blessing in this regard. And you also, you've got Mars in Pisces, and it's conjunct your sun, which gives you a little more push, and that's good. I mean, you need some of that Aries fire, and the Mars Sun conjunction is almost like being a double Aries in some ways. So you can be a leader, you can take on a leadership role, but because those planets are in your fourth house and Mercury in the fourth house as well, that's not necessarily the role that you would take in the world, because the fourth house is the home, right? It's the IC, and you've got Mars right on the IC. So you would tend to be, you're kind of an interesting mix of having, a cardinal initiatory startup energy, and at the same time, it's kind of hidden away, and it's below the horizon. And it's not necessarily out in the world per se. Now, you've got these three planets all conjunct in the ninth house, which really is sort of the roof of the world, or the roof of the chart. So you can see all this stuff. The question is, how do you implement it? How do you get it done? Well, perhaps part of the mystery resides in Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces in your third house. Now, the third house is the house of the intellect. It's the house of early education, basically like K through almost up to high school. High school, you start to get into the sixth house and vocational trades and curriculum, things like that. But the third house is also about intellect. It's about communication, and it's about writing. The challenge for you would be, how do you get the big picture? How do you get the clear, lucid, panoramic view that's sitting up there in the ninth house, which can be very efficient and very analytical? How can you bring all that down, into the third house, which is a communication house? And Saturn in the third house is not necessarily bad, but what it portends really is that communication, using your brain, is going to be a life work for you with Saturn in the third house. So one of the things that you would look towards would be writing, would be some form of teaching, and it's in Pisces, which is interesting because Pisces is very imaginative. So part of your challenge is to yoke Saturn, which is hard work, which is discipline, which is order and structure, to Pisces, which is all about diffusion and all about merging and all about, smudging these boundaries of, mine and thine. And Saturn, and it's at 0 degrees too, which is a very potent degree. And Neptune, by the way, is right on your Saturn right now. It's on 2 degrees on your Saturn. I think Neptune goes back to 1 degree in 2013. So Neptune has been dancing on your Saturn for about a year and will continue for another year. So part of this is, how can you harness the creative imagination? How can you harness these flights of fancy how can you harness the desire to experience oneness? Because theoretically, that's what religion should be about. It should be about oneness. It should be about dissolving these demarcations between people, between man and God, between humans and animals, that there's this sacred, commingling of all these life forces, and then we honor them, and then we, theoretically we would codify them in ways that are supportive of that point of view. Not always the case, but that's a kind of like what this is about. How can you live with a sacred understanding of life, and in some ways be a witness to it and record it, while at the same time being able to draw down those powerful diagnostic, clear and lucid energies from the ninth house, but not necessarily in a way. It's not like you would have these realizations or be able to see the big picture and then write like a manual, because that's not necessarily what it's about. Pisces and Saturn in Pisces requires that you engage your creative imagination. It's important. And Neptune being on your Saturn right now would challenge you to do that. Now, Neptune is also opposed your moon. And sometimes when you get a Neptune-moon opposition, you have to get into what's real and not real. Like, are my emotions, what I'm feeling, real? Are these hunches I'm feeling, is this real? Are my instincts real? I had this dream last night. Was that dream real? Is this a vision? Is this a prophecy? Or is this just my fear? That's the Neptune moon opposition. It also gets a little tricky when you get into emotions with other people, especially like lovers or potential lovers or things along those lines. That can be a real challenge. Pluto is right now trining your Uranus, and Pluto for you is in the second house, and it's just entered into your second house, and it's going to be in your second house for quite a while. It's going to be in your second house for probably about 17 to 18 years. It's going to be there for a long time. Now, the good news about this is it's going to shift into Aquarius actually at about year 14 or 13. It'll shift into Aquarius around year 13. And then when that happens, then the focus of the second house will shift as well. But Pluto's second house transits are all about understanding security, this whole notion of security, and what it means to be secure, what it means to live in a world or in a life without fear, right? Because the second house is all about base values. It's like the first chakra. It's like early childhood training when, learning how to clench your sphincter and stuff like that and wipe your butt. That's the second house. Excuse me. It's about having food. It's about having shelter. It's about having clothes. It's all Maslowian lower level hierarchy of needs. It's about the body. It's also about beauty and sex, and we could go there, but we're just talking about really fundamental baseline stuff. And when Pluto gets into that house, a lot of those things are challenged. A lot of those notions are challenged. And right now, you've got Pluto opposing your true node, which is in Cancer, in the 8th house. So here we have, in some ways, a conflict of values, or a conflict around how you perceive value. Because the true node in Cancer, if we look at the true node is like the true north of the chart. It's like the beacon. If we go to the true node, that's where we can really self-actualize. And for you, it's in the 8th house, and for you, it's in Cancer. So, what does that mean? Well, it means you're here to nurture people. You're here to feed people. You're here to share emotional support and depth and character. Cancers have a lot of character. They are, I have not met too many Cancerian people that are flaky. Why is that? Well, because they know and they understand the intrinsic value of making ends meet all across the board, emotionally, materially. That's what Cancers do. There's very little waste when it comes to a Cancer's life. And so, as a result of that, they're always trying to, make things in some ways better for themselves and better for other people. And when you've got, especially their families, by the way, and when you've got that in the 8th house, the true node is saying you've got to go into the depths. You've got to go into the depths of your 8th house because it's right at the beginning, 7 degrees. There's a kind of a degree of esoterica with that 7-degree true node in Cancer. You've got to go into the depths. You have to understand what nurturing means. Nurturing yourself, being nurtured by whatever, God, art, other people, this whole concept of nurturing sustenance on an emotional level, on a psychic level, is very important for you. And if you get into that and understand it, then you can begin to have a deeper realization with it and be okay with living in your 8th house. And the 8th house is ultimately about being able to draw, while Taurus, which is the 2nd house, is about the overt and active manifestation of goods to feel secure in the world, like working hard, right? That's Taurus. The 8th house is not about working hard. The 8th house is about working with intention and working smart and drawing things to you. And because you've got Cancer there, part of what that true node is asking you to do is to understand the art of manifestation as it relates to emotional resonance. So part of what's important for you is to be around people that are going to feed you psychically and emotionally. That's really, really important, especially with that Virgo moon. You could take some criticism because you've got Pluto up there. You're tough. There's a resiliency with that Pluto. But at the same time, it's also important for you to be around people that get you, that feed you, that understand you, because you want to be able to do the same on some level, really, with that true node in the 8th house. Now, Pluto's opposing your true node. And what you have to understand, I think, really, I think the big piece here is, what is value? What is value to you? What do you value? How much value do you place on your time? How much value do you place on what you give or what you receive? This is all about value and security. So it's weighing these things out, and it's important, I think, to arrive at some form of balance, some form of stasis, so that what you can do is honor that true node in Cancer. By the way, Jupiter is going to be in Cancer in 2013. Should be a great transit for you. You've got Jupiter in your 7th house right now transiting. The 7th house Jupiter transits are all about relationships and the expanded potential for one-on-one relationships that take place in your life. So that's really good. But for now, it's like, figure out who you want to be around, who you want to spend your time and energy with, how they feed you, how you feel emotionally. Because the stronger you feel in terms of who you're with and how they impact you on a deep emotional level, the easier it's going to be for you to get into that 2nd house with Pluto. And everybody that goes through a Pluto transit in their 2nd house winds up facing their fears. That's what it is. And Pluto right now is trining your Uranus up in the 9th house, and you could have some really tremendous breakthroughs with understanding this notion around what it is to live fearlessly, and what it is to transform fear into freedom. Because the 9th house with Sagittarius also ruling that house is all about freedom. It's all about freedom of thought, freedom of expression, and with 3 planets, a troika of Pluto, Uranus, and Moon, that's a very big theme for you as well. But it gets played out a little bit differently with that Virgo influx. Real quick, Uranus cruising through your 4th house, and it's just off of your sun. Uranus goes back to 6 degrees this year, so it's within 2 degrees of your sun. Your sun, Mars, Mercury, they're all in your 4th house. So, I don't know what you do for a living, but if you're not doing part of it at home, you're kind of missing out on being able to use your home in a way that can become a dynamic launching pad for whatever ideas you want to bring into the world. But the other thing with all those planets in the 4th house is theoretically, again, I don't know what you do, but theoretically, you could be really good at renovation, renovating your own home, renovating other people's homes. All that Aries energy, especially Sun conjunct Mars, those are all really pioneering, getting things done, being, kind of being a team leader or group leader, but it's all within the context of a home, so it would be like a general contractor or sub-general contractor. But because Uranus is there in the fourth house, it's revolutionary. It's breakthrough stuff. It's like solar energy. It's, passive and active solar cells. It's bringing all these really advanced kinds of concepts into home living and home life. So I don't know, again, what's going on with you, but if you could somehow employ Uranus to your benefit, which is revolutionizing where you live, how you live, and maybe how other people live, it could be a very cool thing for you. So let me stop there, and you can ask me questions or give me feedback or whatever.
No, it's actually wonderful. Thanks so much for the insight there. So you're right about things about that. So, it's kind of amazing what astrology can tell about yourself. So thanks so much for the great job that you did. Yeah, I know right now is that you're right about the job thing. I'm bringing a lot of stuff to my boss's table, and I don't know. One day he upset me, and I had to say, you know what, this is not very nice. I mean, I've been working my butt off for the last week or so, and we had to get some things for events, and he's a different person being around with him. He still has to discipline me once in a while or whatever. So, but you're right about bringing the stuff near the table and being value. You're right about that. So right now I'm just like really looking at what I do for that company and what they're giving back to me. So
this whole thing, I'm gonna share just a personal experience, that happened to me over the weekend. Maybe this will connect with you because of the Cancer piece with the True Node. But I was hanging out with my mother this last weekend, and I brought my kid over. We go over to her house, and I go into her place, and she immediately starts dumping on this friend of hers, who is she's kind of a user, this woman. She's manipulative, and my mother doesn't like it, okay? So she used my mother in a very benign kind of way, but my mother still didn't like it. But my mother is part of this Pluto and Cancer silent generation. They don't say anything, right? They'll let somebody screw them over, but somewhere down the line they'll remember them for some reason, and they won't let it go. But they won't confront them on it. But she was grinding on this woman, and she was being negative. And we went out, we're doing some things, and she started to get negative to me. And I was like, I had it. Just take me home. I don't want to be around this. And then I realized, I said, you know why you're negative to me? So you're negative to me because you didn't deal with this woman. You didn't deal with her. You didn't confront her. So now you're taking it out of me. I'm your family. Quite frankly, I'm not going to stand for it. So just either drop it and change your tone with me or bring me home. And guess what, man? The thing shifted. It just shifted, totally shifted. I had never had that experience before. I'd never realized that all the years that my mother was miserable, it was other people, and she was unable to confront these people, and she was bringing that misery into my life. And I think what happens is that this is not uncommon. People do this all the time. And here's what happens, right? We're all very sophisticated people on some level, and there's this psychic pecking order, right? Boss has a shitty day. Maybe he didn't have sex with his wife the night before, whatever, right? And so he comes into work, and he's got you, Jay, pegged as the guy that he can dump on because you've got the Virgo moon and whatever that is, right? He's got you pegged. And all of a sudden that day he comes in, you give him the report, you busted your ass, and it's not really you. It's really something else. But in his mind, he's already made a value judgment on you. And he has determined that based on his value judgment on you, you are lesser than, and therefore he can dump you. And this is what I'm talking about with the True Node in Cancer in the 8th house. And at some point when people, and I'm 51 years old, and I'm just really starting to grok this. At some point when people understand their value in a very realistic way, then they'll step back and say, enough. I'm not going to allow you to do that to me. That's insane. And then guess what? People will change. They will shift on a dime. They will. And they'll show up differently. And this is where we get into this whole matrix of creating your own reality. But you have to take those steps. So I would say, get into that 8th house and understand, who you are and value who you are and what you do. And, and you can work it out in your own way, but don't let anybody, take it away from you or push you around. You can take constructive criticism. That's one thing, but, stand up for who you are and what you contribute. And know it. Just know it on an emotional level, because that's a true note in the 8th house.
I find that I don't think there's anything as constructive considerism, or what do you call that? I'm just tied up for words.
Yeah.
It's just putting you down, basically. That's all it is.
Yeah, it can be. But somebody can set you aside and say, look, I really want to give you some feedback. And that is the key. When they say, I'd like to give you some feedback, would you like to hear it? And then you go, you know what? Yeah, okay. See, now you're in agreement. Mm-hmm. Now you're in agreement. Now here's the deal. You can flip that script, right? If somebody says to you and they start to rag on you, you can stop the tape. You can stop and say, excuse me, is this going to be constructive criticism? And they can say yes or whatever. And you say, okay, I just want to know. I want to be in agreement with what you're about to share with me. You understand? Now in that moment, you are becoming you're becoming an equal partner in that experience, and you can change the velocity of that moment by stopping that person and saying, "Is this constructive criticism?" Good. I just want to be up to speed and dialoguing with you from that level. I tell you right now, man, you do that to somebody, you do that to your boss the next time, and your boss will be floored. And you'll be doing him a favor, too.
Yeah, well, he's a lot better now before, so.
Okay.
Got another boss that's probably watch home because just unorganized and stuff like that. So, yeah, I have really no other questions except for, I'm looking for some work. I got to get some workshops going, and I got to find some workshop space again, so.
Workshops would be good for you. 3rd house, Saturn, Neptune. Yeah. Bring that knowledge down from the 9th. That's your big mission in life. Yeah. Teach, share. It's about oneness. There's a component of oneness that you need to anchor and share with people. Okay?
Okay.
All right, Jay. Stay strong, man.
You too. It's great talking to you. Great for your knowledge and wisdom.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That was Jay. Let's talk to our friend in the 510 and see what's happening here. Hello there.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for taking my call.
No worries. Thanks for holding. It was a long time there.
Oh, no worries. Good information. So I had a mini vocational question.
Okay.
I'm wondering, I'm getting into astrology, and I'm wondering if it's something that I can use to sustain myself in the future.
Okay. Let's get into your chart. What's your name?
Kim.
Kim. Okay. All right. When's your birthday, Kim?
It's September 5th, 1979.
Okay. So I just want to tell you, astrology can be lucrative if you know what you're doing and you have a particular angle. It can also be destitute as well.
Yeah.
What time were you born?
4:52 p.m.
All right. And where did that take place?
Merced, California.
Merced. The home of Ted Lilly. You know who Ted Lilly is?
No.
Ted Lilly is a Major League Baseball player.
Oh, nice.
All right. Whoa, look at that chart. Hello. Very intense, very powerful, and look, if you want to get into astrology, I think you can be really good.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. You've got Uranus right in your midheaven, and Uranus Astrology is, I think astrology is very Aquarian, obviously. It's 11th house. To me, astrology is like an 11th house religion. Okay, so Uranus rules Aquarius, and you've got it right on your midheaven. Well, not really right; it's off your midheaven, but it's close. It's very close. You've got Uranus at 17 degrees Scorpio, and your midheaven's at 14 degrees, so it's within 3 degrees. Super close, and it's on the other side of your midheaven in the 10th house, which is the house of vocation and bringing your gifts, skills, and talents to the world. Okay. Now the challenge for you is the majority of your planets are all hanging out in the 8th house: Mercury, true node, Sun, Venus, Saturn, and most of them. Well, let me see. All of them, by the way, are in Virgo. So you've got Mercury conjunct true node, Virgo, Sun in Virgo, Venus in Virgo, and Saturn in Virgo. Now, the thing with the 10th house, this is really interesting because you've got 0 degrees moon in Pisces, and the previous caller, Jay, had 0 degrees moon in Virgo. Maybe you guys should hook up and see how that would go. Anyway, so the challenge is, because the 8th house is, it's one of these houses that are occluded. You can't really kind of go into that house. It doesn't jump out at you like, say, the 5th house or the 6th house or the 1st house or the 10th house. It's scorpionic. It's below the surface. It's beneath the surface. So you're not going to be able to get to that material as much. So, how do you get to it? How do you allow the hidden planets of the 8th house come out? Well, the key to that is the moon for you. And it's the moon in Pisces, and it's in the 2nd house. So for you as an astrologer, if you want to make money and have astrology as a career, then I think you've got to get into the moon. You've got it. So what is the moon? The moon is, and in Pisces, by the way, I believe it's very feminine. It's a very feminine moon in Pisces. So my advice to you would be to tailor your astrology to women. Okay. I would, if you want to make money, I would do astrology based mostly because the moon in your chart, right? I'm sorry, your moon is at 6 degrees. It's not 0 degrees. I'm losing my eyesight. So you've got to get, it's a really interesting dance between Mercury and the moon in your chart. All that 8th house material in Virgo make you super analytical. So you would understand astrology. You would be a really, really good mathematical astrologer. Angles, ingresses, all that stuff. You would nail that easily. And then with the 8th house, you could take it 2 to 3 levels deeper and go, okay, well, not only do you have this, but you could go into a psychic place because the 8th house is a psychic house. So now you have this combination of analytical awareness and psychic depth. And the challenge is to bring it into the moon so you can evoke a sense of feeling and a sense of blending and a sense of simpatico and emotion on a one-to-one level with other people. Again, it doesn't have to be specifically or solely women, but when I see the moon in a water sign, which is a feminine element, in the 2nd house, which is Earth, which is a feminine element, it just seems highlighted. You would also be pretty good with couples astrology and synastry. You've got Pluto and Libra up in the 9th house. Pluto in the 9th house, as I was talking to Jay, is seeing the big picture. And seeing how dynamics work from an expanded view. And Pluto and Libra is all about relationships. It's about the depth of relationship dynamics, male-female dynamics, things like that. So that would be another thing that theoretically you'd be good at. Then, the 8th house is a money house. Well, again, I was talking with Jay about that. And with all that Virgo, what's interesting about Virgo, all that Virgo you have in your chart, is that working hard is really highlighted with Virgo, especially with Saturn. However, you have to redefine what that working hard is about. it would be studying, it would be getting into sort of the depth of your profession. That's what the hard work would be. And a lot of times people wouldn't even really see all the work that you would put into something. That would come out with Moon in the second house. Part of your process too would be very transformational, because people that have a lot of planets in the 8th house like that, they would go through sort of these, kind of transformational phoenix-like experiences in their lives, and they would come out in the second house as kind of distilled and refined and purified emotional expression. So part of what you would also want to do with that Moon is to hitch up with cycles of the Moon. Like if you were going to launch like a website, right, to be an astrologer, you want to pay close attention to where's the Moon. We've got a new Moon coming up in Pisces with the Virgo Sun. That might be a really interesting time for you to put your shingle out or to offer readings to your friends. I have no idea where you are in terms of this kind of development, but the new Moon in Pisces would be a really good time for you to get something going, because you're honoring the Moon. It's a new Moon in Pisces. Yeah, it's opposite the Sun, but so what? The Moon is a really big player, a big mover and shaker in your chart. And then to tailor big movements with your career on the Moon, especially moons that are sympathetic to your Moon, either Cancer moons, Cancer full or new moons, Scorpio full or new moons. You could get into, I wouldn't necessarily get into the Virgo full moon, because you got a moon opposition. That's conflicting. But you could look at things like the sextile moons with the Pisces new and full, the Taurus new and full moon, the Capricorn new and full moon, of course, obviously the Pisces full moon as well. So, this is using planetary and astrological cycles to really impact and empower, this really strong Moon that needs support. And that's the other thing. Your Moon is just hanging out there. Your Moon is literally just hanging out there. It's by itself. Doesn't really aspect a whole lot, So you need support as well. You need people that support what you do. And that's really, really important. And that gets into partners. And you've got Jupiter and Leo, and that's in the 7th house. So I would say finding a strong partner or strong mentor or somebody that you can work with, at least initially, would be very important for you. And maybe even somewhere down the line, you might be able to find somebody that would share your love of astrology and actually work with you in not just a partner relationship with astrology, but also a potential love relationship as well. There are these two astrologers, Jamie and Marina Darkstar. They're really good, and they work together. It would be something along those lines, and I think that not that you need a relationship like that to have that kind of support, but I think ultimately it could evolve along those lines. But you do need support. That Pisces Moon is very fragile at times, very sensitive. So if you go out there and you say, hey, I'm an astrologer, and somebody says, oh, yeah, what are you going to do the rest of your life? That can be very painful for you with that Pisces Moon. So, again, I'm not trying to, say you've got to coddle yourself, because you're tough, Virgo, with all that Virgo and stuff in the 8th house, you're tough. But emotionally, you can be out on a limb sometimes. And so you do need support with that. And, by the way, Neptune in Chiron is right on your Moon. You've got Chiron right on your Moon right now, which is really, you're having this conversation with me because Chiron's on your Moon. You're exploring, what it would be like to do this. You're feeling it out. How would it feel? How would it feel to be able to do that? Can you make money out of it? Is this going to support you? Again, the 2nd house, support. That's really, really important. If you focus on women and couples, you'll be very, very successful with astrology. And I do believe with Uranus on your midheaven, this could be a very, very strong profession for you.
Okay. And I have a question. How would that work with Saturn coming up in Scorpio and that affecting my 10th house?
Yeah, the Saturn 10th house transit is it's very propitious. Like for instance, my blog really took off when Saturn went into my 10th house, and really kind of put me on the map. Whatever that is in some ways. And I got a lot of work done. A lot of work. The thing with Saturn in Scorpio in your 10th house, especially when Saturn gets into the latter degree, the middle degrees. Saturn on Uranus can be really tough on your nerves. You might have like too much work. You may have too many clients. So you're going to have to really monitor your energy. But the good news is that Saturn's going to be, especially in the early degrees, it's going to be trining your moon. You gotta love that. The Saturn moon trine is going to be very powerful. It's going to be like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah, absolutely. But then it's going to get into, trining as it moves further along, and it conjuncts your Uranus and trines your Mars. Hell yeah, it'll be great. Saturn trine Mars. Mars is in your 6th house, vocation. It's going to give a real boost to your Mars. You'll be able to work hard during that time. Just don't work too hard. You're going to have to take time out when Saturn gets between like 11 and 18, 19 degrees. That'll be kind of a critical phase for you. Pace yourself a little bit, but don't be afraid to push it too. Because you only get, in a lot of ways, Saturn is not going to be coming around to your 10th house again for 28 years, right? So you're not going to have another shot at this in the same way. So the stars are lining up for you, and you want to make the most of it. So don't be afraid to put your shoulder to the wheel. Work smart, work hard, but make sure that you do take time out every now and then and so you could do things like, work really hard for 10 days and then do nothing for 4 or 5 and just completely rejuvenate. I mean, nothing. And then work, so it's things like that. And for you, the most rejuvenating thing that you can do is be in water, hang out with water, whether it's Harbin Hot Springs or your own bathtub, and anytime you want to recharge really quickly, get in water. You'll get there faster.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and best of luck. And when you get up to speed and you want to, come on the show and talk astrology, we'll get you on here and we'll find out what you do and all that. And
awesome.
Yeah, okay?
Thanks so much, Robert.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, take it. Bye.
All right, let's go to the 324 caller. Hey there, you're on the show. How are you? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Is it Robert? Am I on?
Well, yeah, you are. Welcome.
How cool is that? This is Susan from Brussels.
Hey, Susan, what's happening?
How are you? I've been trying to get on your show for ages, but because of the time difference, it's almost impossible.
I thought I recognized your voice. You have a very distinct voice. What's going on?
Well, everything's going and nothing's happening at the same time. So it's kind of it's been a fascinating and challenging time.
I bet.
I have to move in 10 days, and I don't know where I'm actually going to move to. So it's been really stressful because I don't have a new apartment, and the kids are going to have to stay with their dad a little bit longer than normal.
Right.
But I'm actually, once I get out of here, I'm going to take 2 weeks and go to San Francisco. Because I'm just really going to see if I can make it work there. Because I don't think I can live here anymore, and I think I'm really not able to do what I need to do here. Nothing seems to be working for me.
Okay.
I mean, it's working, but it's working, but not in a way that's very satisfying, and I don't feel like I'm growing. I feel like I'm just kind of treading water.
Yeah. So it's March what?
March 2nd, 66.
March 2nd, 66, right.
And it's 1:45 p.m.
Is that Michigan? Is that where it was?
That's right, yeah. Stambo, Michigan.
Let's see what we got here. How's your brother doing?
He's doing great. He's in Philadelphia. I'm going to see him actually when I come out. He's in Philadelphia now. Mm-hmm. They sent him down there to take over an American bank that the Canadian bank he works for bought. So, I mean, it's been hell on the professional front, but he's doing really well.
Okay, so there you are in all your glory. Okay, so
let me guess, does it go in every direction?
Well, yeah. I mean, your chart is really interesting, and excuse me. At the same time, not always, easy to deal with those oppositions. But today is all about oppositions. It's interesting. Jay had the major opposition at the first call with Moon and Saturn, and then our last caller, she had the opposition with her Moon and all the army of Virgo planets. And you've got all these planets in your ninth house in Pisces opposing, Pluto and Uranus, exact conjunction, in the third house. Okay, so, one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I'm going to bring this up again, is that you've got to teach. You've got to teach. You've got all that stuff in the ninth house. You've got the thing with you is that not only do you have accrued knowledge from this lifetime, you've got accrued knowledge from other lifetimes. That's all that Pisces in the ninth house. And once you get into teaching, and I know you've done your yoga teaching, and that is part of this, but there's more to it than just the body.
Yeah, I'm so ready now to do something different.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, good, because and I'm going to tell you this, once you get into the teaching aspect, the floodgates are going to open, and it's not just going to be about what you've learned in this lifetime. It's going to be about accrued knowledge. It's like opening up the gates of your DNA. Really, that's the potential you have, because Pisces. If we look at Pisces, and Pisces dominates your chart, Sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, Mars in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Chiron in Pisces. You look at the 12th house, which, by the way, you've got Jupiter and Moon, 12th house. You've got this really strong connection to this whole concept of the 12th house. What is the 12th house? The 12th house for me is the house of soul. That's what it is. The house of soul. And you've got the Moon there in Cancer, right? So part of this is getting into this emotional resonance with the 12th house, emotional resonance with the soul. It's about nurturing soul. There's a lot of stuff out there about that, but it's important. It's an important concept for you because it triggers, a lot of your planets in the ninth house, which are Pisces. Again, they are celestial agents from the house of soul, all in the ninth house. They're there, up there, in the house of philosophy, law, religion, expanded consciousness, the big picture. It's like getting into that Moon in Cancer. By the way, San Francisco is a Cancer city. So
no kidding.
Yeah, so that might be an interesting place for you to be.
Okay.
And then we start the 12th house. We start with your Moon, 11 degrees. You've got an exact trine between your Moon in Cancer and your Piscean Sun. Exact trine. So for you, and you're already good at this. You're a meditator. You do yoga, right? And you get into that space, that 12th house space with your Moon, and you bring the energy up into your ninth house, and it's like the aha moments. Aha, 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 aha. Now what? Well, the ninth house, see, the thing with the ninth house, and it's a lot like Libra is in some ways a lot like Sagittarius. I mean, they sextile each other, but a lot of times people in the ninth house, or people that have Sagittarian kind of epiphantic episodes in their lives, they'll say, hey, I just got the big picture. I just saw the whole thing. I don't have to do anything. I just got it, right? But that's only part of the equation. You've got to take that energy now and you got to bring it down into the second house. The second house is where you have that exact Pluto-Uranus conjunction, 17 degrees. Never seen anybody with the exact conjunction, by the way, Susan.
Really?
Yeah, and it's down there in your third house. So what is that conjunction all about? It's about radical and accelerated healing. That's what that conjunction generationally is about. What is the third house? It's about sharing knowledge, sharing information, teaching, groups, seminars, things like that. And Pluto and Uranus means that for you, that's where you need to apply that energy. You've got to share the knowledge. And once you do, I am telling you, you're going to be really, I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but you're going to be blown away by what comes to you as a result. All right, so let's talk about two really interesting transits for you. You've got your sun at 11 degrees. It's going to take a while, but Neptune is now moved into your ninth house. So when Neptune moves into your ninth house, I think gets to 3 degrees next year. So it's going to be within hailing distance of your sun. That essentially means that this Neptunian, Piscean inspiration is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger inside of you and with your own perception. So a deepening of, the ninth house is the house of religion. And when Neptune comes into that ninth house, it rekindles kind of this desire to get down into the roots of religion. What is religion, right? It's, where does it spring from? Is it really just a mechanism of control, or is there really something there? Is there some kind of, groping and intellectualizing of a system because somebody had a flash of oneness, or somebody had a really powerful cognition about, what God is and what the universe is and how we're all supposed to treat each other. As Neptune gets closer and closer to your sun, it's going to become more and more important to you. And Chiron is going to get closer to your sun as well. Chiron's, I think, at 5 degrees now. But when you get Chiron, like, on your sun, it's going to be like you're on the spot. Like, you're going to have no choice. You're going to have to do this. It's like, this is it. This is it. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm supposed to do.
And Chiron, when is that now? When's that coming up?
Chiron goes into, I think it gets up to 10 degrees next year. Let me just go into those ephemeris.
So it's towards the end of next year.
Let's just see. Hold on, in the wrong year. Hold on. But the big player is Jupiter in your chart. We're going to talk about that in a second. Let's go here. Let's go. Okay, so Chiron gets to 8 degrees this year, okay? 8 degrees this year, so it's within 3 degrees of your sun. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. Sometimes it feels exposed when Chiron conjuncts your sun. But in 2013, it conjuncts your sun exactly. It reaches 13 degrees in 2013, so 13 in 2013. So actually it gets to, hold on a second, it gets to, no, your sun is at 11. So hold on. It goes to 11 degrees in March. Oh, interesting. March. So in your birthday month, Chiron conjuncts your sun. And what else is happening for you then? 9 degrees, let's see, Venus, a lot of Aries energy, Mercury. It's going to be at 8 degrees. So you're going to have, so check this out. On the 30th of March, by that time, the sun is already in Aries, but Mercury will be in Pisces, Chiron will be in Pisces, and those will be conjunct your sun. And if you don't understand your kind of where you are, what you're supposed to be doing by that time, you will.
Okay.
So Jupiter is in Gemini, and it is getting ready. Well, it's in your 11th house right now, so it's a really good time for you to network. Super good time for you to network. Obviously, calling me up on the show is a form of networking. So this is a great moment or a great propitious time for you to do that. So I would do more of that. I would do more networking, especially with your friends. If you're going to be moving to San Francisco, like maybe you could tap me because I don't live far from San Francisco.
Yeah. I thought you're in Oakland, aren't you?
I'm in Richmond, right across the bridge.
Okay.
So this is a great time for you to network. And then in 2013, Jupiter finally drops into, well, it gets close to your 12th house this year. I think it goes to like 14 degrees. But in 2013, Jupiter drops into your 12th house. You have a Jupiter-Jupiter return. And it will put some strain on some of your Piscean planets because Jupiter, is all about, taking leaps of faith. So, you're going to have some sort of kind of risk moment when Jupiter comes into your 12th house. Just make sure it's an informed risk. Look, I
feel like I've been living 5 years of risk moments.
I know, but it's informed. But Jupiter, I think it works out fine because Jupiter is going to be in its own sign, even though it's in its fall in Gemini. It's in its own sign, so I wouldn't stress out about it too much. I think a move would be good for you.
I just have to get out of here. I can't do it anymore.
Well, if you want to talk to me offline, you know where you can find me. I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think it would be worth pursuing this. I'll definitely do that.
And I got to tell you, here's what we'll do. I'll do an astrocartography thing for you for this area. We can do that later.
Okay.
And I think this area would be very good and very receptive to what you do.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Great to hear your voice, Robert.
Good to hear you. And how are your kids?
They're great. They're actually just arriving now as we speak in Toronto to go to camp in Canada.
Okay.
And thank God, because otherwise they wouldn't have a bed to sleep in 10 days. So they're going to be gone for 3 weeks.
All right. Well, I'll come find me offline. All right.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks, Robert.
Okay. Bye, Susan.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. There's our friend Susan. My friend Susan. It's 11:33. 33's been coming up for me a lot lately. C.J. Wilson was pitching for the Anaheim Angels last night. They are the Anaheim Angels. They're not the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They're not even the Los Angeles Angels. They're the Anaheim Angels. And my Oakland A's put a butt whooping on them last night, 10-4. And C.J. Wilson was number 33. All right, it's 11:34. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm your host, Robert Phoenix. I got open lines, free and clear. I'll call in. Number 347-308-8995. On Friday, I'm going to have Darren Williams on live from Liverpool, and we're going to get into some very interesting territory, very interesting stuff. Don't miss that show. Bright guy, and we're going to get into the Afrocentric vision of the Earth and how, by the way, it may have been hijacked through time and history. We're going to get into that. And some of the information you may find shocking. It may challenge you to the core. But we're in the business of truth. So we're going to bring Darren on. We're going to talk about some of his ideas and his theories. We're going to get down and we're going to flip the script. We're going to get into some interesting stuff. And then after Darren, we're going to have Kenneth Warren on, who has been put together Captain Poetry's Sucker Punch, which is a really interesting treatise, in some ways, semiotic treatise, a hyperdimensional narrative, a guide to the Homeric punk cult, 1980-2012. Good stuff. So we're going to talk with Kenneth as well. So it's going to be a very good show. Don't miss it. Okay, 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995. If you want to call in, we're going to refresh the screen because sometimes if I don't see all the callers coming in, because sometimes that happens. So let me just refresh the screen. There we go. Okay, there's nobody here in the queue. Excuse me. I'm going to play a little bit of music, and I'm going to hang out in the chat room, and then I'm going to see what it's like when I come out, and if nobody's there or here or wherever the there is, then I'm going to transition out of here. Let's play a little music by our friend Erica Maringer. Let's check in here for 4 minutes and 39 seconds of some divine beauty. Here we go. That was Erica Maringer. Beautiful song, beautiful piece of music. I will be back on Friday with Darren Williams and Kenneth Warren. And until then, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to sit on what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you've been listening to Navigate